G'day, everybody, and welcome to WTF episode 5. My name is Joe, aka Mac Dougal, and unfortunately, my usual companion, Jared Reedy, is not here this week. He's traversing the European countryside with his bride, and that's probably why we won. He is probably a jinx, and we'll talk about that soon. But I have managed to rope in a couple of equally passionate Tigers fans from our secret Discord. With me today, we've got Nick and Jack. How you going, boys?
Great, thanks for having us. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to
Yeah,
be
mate,
here.
not bad at all. Oh,
Sick.
especially after that win on the weekend.
Yeah, you guys get to join us for the very first Wincast. It's actually maybe this will become a thing. We'll only bring Jared on when we lose, and we'll get you boys on for the wins.
Sweet.
Awesome. So we've got a packed show, obviously, today. We've got plenty to talk about, except it's different. Usually all we're talking about is terrible shit that nobody actually wants to talk about. And this week we've actually got a win to talk about. So before we crack on with reviewing the Titans game and the upcoming game this round, just wanted to get you guys to give us a little bit of an introduction, introduce yourselves, how long you've been Tigers fans. Let's start with you, Nick.
Yeah, so I've been a Tigers fan since I would say the late stages of Balmain's existence, say 98. So I saw the dying stages of that club before it merged with the Magpies. So I actually just consider myself a pure West Tigers fan, not a Balmain or a Magpies, I'm not on either side. I'm just pure West. I'd say I've barely missed a game for the past 25 years.
Nice.
Which,
And were you like fully conscious and can vividly remember '05?
Yeah, remember it all. The final series. I mean, like the grand final's a bit of a blur, but yeah, the final series in particular, yeah, awesome, man. Especially the Cowboys game, the finals where Brett Hodgson scored 32 points or something.
Yeah, during that game, I was at a mate's party, and they were all upstairs in a hot tub with girls getting pissed, and I snuck away and hid downstairs in the lounge room to watch that thrashing.
Oh, that's better, anyways.
How about you, Jack? How long have you been a Tigers fan?
Oh yeah, mate. I probably came on board in the early 2000s. I was only actually 8.5 years old in '05 when we won, but I attended every game in the final series bar the Broncos game. So obviously
Nice.
it was sort of a whirlwind. Yeah, amazing atmosphere. I remember going with my granddad. Granddad and grandma came to a game as well. So you could say I was sort of brought up in that new West Tigers spirit, as Nick just alluded to as well. The trophy cabinet's been a bit dusty since, but we won't talk about that too much today, coming off the back of a win. And yeah, look, I'm all about the black, white and gold.
Awesome, man. So we've got a couple of pure blood West Tigers fans. Well, as you guys probably know, I'm a bit older than that. I've been a Balmain fan from a while back, but hopefully soon we can add another trophy to those two trophies we've got, because of course we have that ancient World Sevens trophy sitting in the cabinet there in Concord as well. So Tigers news this week. Obviously the big win is the main thing. But today we had an interesting announcement. Without playing an NRL game in anger in over a year, Adam Doueihi has, or Doueihi, as I think is the correct pronunciation, has re-signed with the club for a further 12 months. I'm of the view that it's a pretty good decision. I think that, getting somebody who has his level of experience and the value he can bring to the side on a bit of a prove it deal for just 1 year. He's probably not going to be taking up too much of the cap. I think it's probably a pretty good value signing. What do you reckon, Jack?
Look, I think in terms of his professionalism, obviously, I just noticed today he's actually only 25, so he's a couple of years younger than I am. And he does have that passion about the club. He does have that work ethic. And I think with some of the younger boys that are our juniors, as you guys both know, and as a lot of our fans would know, we have some great juniors coming through. I think you kind of need that to rub off organically. You can't just be signing in older blokes, wiser heads to come in and bash them together and hope that it works out. I think you really need to develop some culture. So as you said, a prove-it deal just for 12 months. I'm very happy with it, really.
Yeah, and what about you, Nick? How do you feel about bringing back Adam Doueihi?
Yeah, I have similar thoughts to Jack. You know what? I really liked his comments last week when he did that interview with Triple M, and he said, I might have to like, get some of these boys to pull their head in. I think that probably spoke volumes to Benji and sort of others around the club. But like Jack said too, it's more a culture thing, and not to mention, too, he can cover multiple positions, more or less every position in the back line and half. So yeah, good to see
I
some
agree.
loyalty.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys summarized it well. I think his utility value is going to be really, really useful too. I just wonder if he's at that stage of his career where he might in the off season do more of like a full transition to the forward pack. I know he's got some issues defending, but
Ooh,
I think his
yeah.
defensive issues are more mobility related than size related, and it might actually benefit him to move into the pack. But anyway, moving on. Probably the other interesting thing that happened aside from the win this week in the world of the West Tigers, it was actually a slow news week compared to most weeks. We obviously got the announcement that Galvin's decided to see out his contract. Stefano put contract talks on hold. But how about Richo cutting sick at the luncheon and calling out the NRL 360 boys? Did that get you guys fired up?
Oh, bro, got the pulse pumping. Yeah, look, I think Richo is the kind of guy we need, but you can't expect him to do much in the time that he's had so far. However, you look at this news with Dwayne, you look at the fact that he's come out and he's put NRL 360 on notice, and seemingly even got Braith on side. Got this bloke who came here and, to be fair, probably didn't put in when he was with the club as a player. And he's got him, in the media spruiking that enough's enough. The Tigers are trying to turn the corner, and as Richo said, there's no need for lies and innuendo from the Fox crew. So I'm on board with everything he's saying, and especially what he's doing at that members' luncheon or whatever it was.
Well, isn't it amazing how little the media have been negative towards us just off the back of beating the other worst team in the NRL? That saying
So
about
true.
wins shuts everybody up, and we drag out a sorry win against the Titans 18-10, and suddenly we've got Braith and Astor in the media defending us from Rothfield. It's very interesting to me. But boys, you guys have obviously been following the podcast since the start, and it's taken 5 episodes. We're finally here. We've got a win cast, and we're going to talk about the Titans review right now. Firstly, I'm going to ask you guys where you were when did you guys go to Leichhardt, or were you guys somewhere else? I was actually unfortunately I was getting pissed at the Gabs Festival in South Bank in Brisbane, so I had to watch it on my phone, and I didn't remember much of it afterwards, so I had to watch the replay. How about you, Nick? Where were you?
Yeah, I'd actually planned on going to the game and taking the family, but being a bit of a cat, and the Dragons thumping the week prior didn't help. With the rain, I kind of went, I might sit this one out. But, regretted that instantly. So, no, I just watched it at home. Yeah, had the pleasure or displeasure of watching New South Wales Cup also. So, yeah, just at home.
I had puppy duties actually that afternoon. My partner and I were sort of trying to negotiate who would look after the young dog we had. But I did end up getting to watch New South Wales Cup as well as Nick just said. I mean, I didn't think the Titans were that bad, but that was only because I probably missed the majority of the crapshoot that people have been saying that the game was. So I came in and I saw the Titans probably miss an opportunity or two. But overall, yeah, no, I was just at home, just around the local area. Probably popped down to the pub, but if memory serves correctly. Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad of a win, so to speak.
Well, that's certainly a positive opinion. I've got a note down here. Media radio silence. I kind of alluded to it before. The media haven't really been talking about the Tigers because we had a win. Usually, they only want to talk about us when things are down. But do you think that we're actually being given enough credit, considering that what we rolled out was, I think, or I've heard, I didn't, I obviously haven't fact checked, but that we ran out the youngest team in our history, at least, if not NRL history, to actually get a win even against a team that are as low on the table as the Titans, has to be given some form of credit. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, 100%. Like, it was, I think, one of the youngest teams in NRL era history. And also, before Seyfarth was moved to the bench, there was 3 games of NRL experience on that bench. So, including 2 debutants. So that in itself is absolutely huge, in my opinion. And no one said a word about it. So, anyways, great win.
It reflects what Benji's trying to do in that he wants the youth to come through. He wants us to put in performances like that, backs against the wall. But we did have, really we had every right to lose that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. Even with the Titans being without Fafita and a couple of other of their more important players, I think when you compare the injury lists, it's kind of not really comparable. I guess that brings me to my next question. Like, do you think that the win had more to do with us being good or the Titans playing poorly? I know, Jack, you said that it was a pretty good win, but do you think that based on what you saw, that you think that if we put up a performance of that level against a team like Canberra this Sunday, that we might be in with a shot?
I absolutely think. I think Canberra's one of those teams as well that you can kind of drag them down to your level. And I noticed a lot of people saying that, and I'm sure even in the media, the opinion is maybe that we brought the Titans right down to our level, but it was Leichhardt, it was tribal, the weather was horrific, and I think it was just a, drag them down, knock them out sort of affair. And we came out on top with one of the youngest sides, as Nick alluded to just before, in NRL history. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with Jake. That's couldn't agree more, to be honest. I do think the Titans, they went great. They had a ridiculous amount of errors in that second half, but they outplayed us in a fair few areas like line breaks, meters gained, etc. So in terms of the effort areas, we actually did really well to scramble and sort of stop tries in the second half. So it's, the Titans were bad, but we were also pretty good. So, can't take it away from us.
Yeah, I think that it's probably the first time that, or maybe not 80, but I certainly think we played, at a standard for the longest period of time, especially after giving up that early try. Like, I think from that point forward, our standards were quite high. Obviously, we gave up quite a few line breaks, but you'd expect that with a young side. And as you guys both pointed out, we did quite well to kind of cover those line breaks and scramble. Talking about the players that performed the best for the Tigers, I'll just start. I think that, each week we talk about Api Coruscant being, the obviously he's the captain, but also the spiritual leader of the team. And I think that, again, he was probably our best player, especially once he moved back to 9 and probably really got us over the line in the end. Also would shout out Alex Seyfarth. I think that I would personally think that was probably the best game of his that I saw. I actually said that I thought he was going to have a big game in the pre-game because just the way he came out in the media and said that he understands that he has to be, more of a measured kind of controlled player. And I just had a feeling he was really going to step up this week. But what about you guys? Who did you guys feel were the best performers in the team, both, talking in terms of the young guys and also the experienced players?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Seyfarth. Yeah, he made, I think, 35 tackles, 150 or so meters, maybe a little bit less, and maybe 2 missed tackles. Stefano clocked over 200 meters, which, he's got that in him. So, actually, Buller made over 200 meters too, which I didn't realize, which I thought he was kind of quiet. But yeah, he still had a solid game. Fanua Pole too, you could say he had a pretty huge game for us, even scoring the try that sealed the deal. So, yeah, and, the main focal point of this is Geordie Miller's debut.
Absolutely. And we will talk about Miller Watch, the NRL edition, shortly. What about you, Jack?
We'll get around to that. Well, look, mate, I'm just going to, right off the back of, I did think Fanua Bole actually probably played better in the back row, I believe. He was in the back row for a majority of the game, but I actually missed the start. So I missed Appy sort of coming in, rescuing or steadying the ship at halfback, I believe, and also the fact that the Titans made some early line breaks there in that early try. But, besides that, I'd have Appy as probably top dog on our all-time signings list. And I agree with Mac as well. Seyfarth had an enormous game, and I think he's only further growing into a role that we kind of need. We need workers and toilers, but really effective ones. And, towards the back end of the game, like I said, in the sequences I saw, I thought Api Coruscant is just, he does something to our team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's amazing considering how much defensive work he gets through that he manages to still be such an attacking threat at the back end of games. Let's talk briefly
Yeah.
about some of these younger guys. Obviously, we saw two debuts from Magpies juniors from that undefeated Harold Matts team, and they were joined by Talon De Silva having his first game starting at 9. Obviously, we're talking about Heath Mason and Jordan Miller. First, I'll ask you, Jack. Did you think that Jordan Miller? Well, obviously we'll talk about the game this week a bit later, but he's been dropped this week for Kitlau Lee. Do you think that he should have been given another shot this week, or do you think it's probably best for his development that he sort of gets a stint back in reserve grade after his debut? How did you feel that he went on the weekend?
Oh, look, it was Miller watch time for me, and as you guys know, I've been a big fan of all the chatter in and around him. But I think, as you said, in terms of his development, in terms of the fact he is so young still, and such a big weapon potentially going forward, and all the boys around him, I think it's important to have him go back, ply his trade, not even ply his trade, just learn to deal with the weight of expectation, just learn to be a winner in some of our junior sides, which besides Flegg, haven't really done too well over the past few seasons. So I think, again, it comes down to culture. It comes down to him having good forward leaders around him. And it comes down to also the fact that you mentioned before, this injury crisis. It's not really being talked about. And that's probably the sole reason he did come in on the bench to get his debut. But I thought he was fantastic, and he really held his own. So...
Yeah, I think what impresses me the most about Jordan is his skill level. I think, for a guy his age, the toughness and the grittiness and the ability to sort of match it with men will come. Obviously, he's got advantages with that size, but every time he takes a hit up, it looks like he's going to make an offload. I have seen him a few times in New South Wales Cup. He's got a pretty good pass before the line as well. Nick, what did you think of the performance of Heath Mason on debut coming off the bench?
Yeah, man, he didn't play huge minutes, but you know what? He looks so sharp. Like, to be fair, I've only watched little bits of him in Cup and, highlights from, his days at Mats and that, but he looks sharp, man. Like, he comes off his feet really quickly, and he looks perfect for that 14 utility role. So, yeah, I'd like to see him get some more game time, to be honest. But like Jack was saying, for players like him to go back and work on things in cups, that's also great for him. But yeah, he looks like a real prospect, Heath Mason.
Yeah, I thought he could really be someone that sort of he goes up a level when he plays against men. And again, these guys are just so young that you want them to be winners and you want them to have that really solid foundation. Then they can play, half a full season or come in when there's real injury crisis. But I think him, even more so than Geordie Miller, I think he's probably ready to make that step. Maybe not into a pure 14 utility role, but throw him in the back end halves, or you put him in fill-in fullback even if Buller was to need a rest or move into the centres potentially, anything like that. I think he could be our guy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I would have probably selected them both this week just because the game's at Campbelltown and they're both Magpies juniors. One of the things that was kind of slightly disappointing for me last week was that Galvin wasn't actually in the team when Mason and Miller debuted, given that he has those built-in combinations with both of them and Talon. And I would have liked to have seen that this week. So I'm not, and I don't know about Kit Laulili getting a start. I don't think he's actually been performing well enough in the lower grades to really do enough to actually jump anyone into the first grade team. But I guess it just means that they are actually getting to a point in the season and getting to a point with the development of these kids where they are actually looking at it as a blooding exercise and really mixing it up. I also just wanted to ask briefly, like there was a few other performers we probably haven't touched on. I just want to mention Justin Matamua. Obviously now he's played a couple of games back-to-back in that starting 13 role. How did you feel that he went? And do you think that there's actually a chance that Justin might be a long-term solution for us at 13?
Yeah, look, he straightens up the tack really nicely, doesn't he? And he really digs into the line, which I like. And I've noticed when he plays, we play a lot wider and a lot straighter. he does have a few lapses in defense, but like you got to expect that from a young lad. So nah, I'm pretty happy with him. Yeah, I think New South Wales Cup this year has been good for him. Like last year, people were off him a little bit, but yeah, I think he's gone back and actually worked on a lot of things he needed to. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
Yeah, totally agree with Nick there. That's all I would say is he's gone back to the drawing board. He's come back hungry. He just needs to watch out for those sort of momentary lapses, I think, in defense, which will come when he's sort of 20, 30, 40 games into his NRL career, like Safepath, for example. You know, although he's not as good a link man as our Juzzy.
No, very, very good insight. I think that he isn't really a liability at all in attack, is he? Like he's attacking, like we are a better attacking team when he's out there. I think it's visible. I've just got the stats up. He only played 32 minutes on the weekend as the starting lock, which is a pretty low number. I didn't remember seeing or hearing anything about him getting injured, but he actually got through quite a lot of work in 32 minutes. He managed to get 6 carries for 51 meters. And he also managed to make 17 tackles, and he didn't miss a tackle. And he had an offload in there as well. So that's an improvement. I wonder what the thinking was in giving him reduced minutes. But on the subject of stats, let's talk about Miller Watch. This is the first chance that we've ever had to do an NRL edition of Miller Watch. You know, if you listen to us every week, you know that Miller Watch is basically just reading out Miller's stats. So here we go. So we had 20 minutes. So he got 20 minutes exactly in his NRL debut, which I think both Reedy and I, and most of you guys that we chat to on the regular kind of assumed would be probably the case, maybe even a little bit more than what we assumed would be the case. 7 runs for 55 meters, so his average meters per carry weren't too high. He managed to make 8 tackles with just the 1 miss. So, you know, nothing, you know, amazing in his performance on the weekend, but at the same time, we got a win, and he didn't actually do anything to contribute negatively to that. So I think that, you know, for a guy who's 19, and I think that most of us in the preseason had penciled into pretty much maybe not even be an NRL prospect anymore, given how overweight he was in the preseason and what he looked like in the off-season training photos. I think to have him in round 15 hitting the NRL scene and putting in numbers like that is a pretty great effort. I also just wanted to shout out Charlie Staines, who I think had a pretty good game, really, on the weekend. 16 runs for 139 meters. And Brent Naden, who on the flip side, I don't actually know why we're even continuing to pick him. He actually only had 67 meters off 7 carries and basically did nothing. So I'm not 100% sure why Brent Naden now this week has been pushed into the starting side. But let's move on to the preview for this next week's game, unless you guys had anything you wanted to add about last week's game.
No, I think you covered it pretty well, man.
Potentially, yeah. No, I was just going to say potentially Naden didn't do anything negative, didn't get himself in, and therefore we got a win.
That's a good point. Maybe Benji's just rewarding him for good behavior. Maybe he's got a good behavior bond at the club. So
actually, sorry, Joe. I just wanted to touch. I actually thought Talon De Silva was pretty good considering he started. I think he made around 33 tackles or so. Not sure.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, he was actually pretty solid, man. Like that wasn't an easy task for him. He hasn't. I don't think he's even been starting in New South Wales Cup. So just chuck him straight in a team that's been barely beaten for weeks was a pretty big ask. I think he did really well, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, valid point. He has played most of the season in New South Wales Cup off the bench, getting limited minutes. Albeit in the last couple of weeks he did start, and he had performed really, really well. It makes me wonder why it took him so long. But that is another thing that came out in the media this week. Talon, in one of the press conferences that they did with him at training, mentioned that he felt like he was off the pace earlier in the year, and he's had to work on his game. So. Obviously, there's been some stuff happening off the paddock there that the coaches have seen and have taken their time to actually give him the minutes even in the New South Wales Cup. And he must have just in the last couple of weeks really sort of pulled his finger out and exploded. Actually, Yeah, we could probably sit here and talk about that game because it's probably the only win we're going to have for the rest of the season. So we might as well talk about it for as long as we can, really. I think Aiden Caesar's return is probably another storyline from that game that's probably worth mentioning. I think he was brilliant. I think that his seniority, just having that like commanding presence in that position next to Appy, steering us around, was light and day from having the last few weeks being, obviously Galvin as a rookie and Sullivan, who's essentially a rookie himself. And I think that you could tell that the rest of the team had a lot of confidence from having those two guys in the side, not just in attack but also in defense. Caesar's a really good defender. He's very vocal on the field. So shout out Aiden Caesar. I will ask before we move on, do you guys think that we should be looking at retaining him for next year? Because right now he's not locked in for next year. I think that there is a mutual option for both him and us. So we both have to want it. Do you think we should want it?
I mean, you're bound to have injuries throughout the season, and yeah, he's huge for us, man. Like, he was involved in 2 of our tries directly. The first Justin Olam try, and also he put Big Sammy through that gap. So yeah, he's really important for our squad at the moment. Like you said, he's vocal, he's a leader, he's a good defender. So yeah, I think we should.
Well, let me ask you a question, Nick. Do you think that next year, if we did retain Caesar, that we should actually be thinking about starting round 1 with a Caesar Luai halves combination instead of a Luai Galvin halves combination?
Yeah, that's all. I was actually just thinking that earlier. That's almost not out of the question. Like, yeah, depends what Galvin wants to do, and yeah, I could see that happening. And that's a pretty solid halves combo, to be honest. A lot of experience and a fair few points in it too. So I'd be happy with that.
Jack,
yeah, look, the only point I would make around old Satan Caesar is basically that who else could we bring in? Who else has that respect already? And who else gives Samuela was he called Lucky on the weekend? Because he had some amazing combinations with C's that I noticed, and one of you two, I believe, brought it up on the Discord. So yeah, I think that's something we need to workshop. And if he wants it, we definitely want it. We need it. We need that seniority because we don't have much of it.
I agree with both of you. I think we should definitely be trying to retain him. I wonder if that's one of the reasons that we're looking at trying to find a new home for Jaden Sullivan, because obviously we've got Latu Fainu, we've got Galvin. I think we still have Onatoni Large at the club, who essentially has an NRL contract promised for 2026. So if we're any chance of actually having Caesar at the club until the end of his career, we probably do need to free up the roster spot. And thanks for mentioning Sam Wellafino. He's obviously a favourite of the potty, and we didn't have a chance to mention him. Probably our best player this year. I actually think he might be the favourite to win the West Tigers Player of the Year at this point in the season.
Yeah, I agree, man. If I was to pick it right now, for sure.
Only because Appy intentionally doesn't let himself win it. But yes, Appy will give them the the soft word before the award ceremony and say, "Don't you bloody give it to me," because that's just the kind of guy he is. All right, let's talk about this week's game. Let's talk about this week's game, boys. So there's a few changes in the side, which is pretty weird considering that we won. I don't know why you would make so many changes from a team that won, but I digress. We are seeing Lachlan Galvin coming straight back into the side after being rested because of that supposed hand injury. Fonua Bole is now actually starting prop. And we see Kit Laulili come onto the bench. Both Heath Mason and Jordan Miller are reverting to the extended bench. Adam Dwayhe remains on the extended bench. First, I want to ask, do you think that we should have rushed Lachlan Galvin back into the side, considering that the Appy 7, Caesar 6, Talon 9 combination seemed to work so well? Nick, you first.
Yeah, it's probably good for the whole media beat of the Galvin wanting to leave, to get him straight back in there. If he has a good performance, I mean, that looks really good for Benji, Richard, everyone involved. So I can see why they rushed him back. But yeah, it's kind of like, why change a winning combo? And if his hand's been fractured, I mean, you want to give him as much rest as possible. Like, a season's already pretty much, it's over. So yeah, I'm not fussed either way, but I probably would have rested him another week.
Yeah, look, I'm of the opinion that we didn't need to rush him back. I think with everything going on, like the outside noise, well, yes, if he comes in and brains it immediately and his hand is all, back up to scratch, then it's a good thing for Benji. It's a good thing for Richo. He can double down on the NRL media that's been on our case. But I also am like, if you're going to bring him back in, as Mac alluded to earlier, you should probably have all the boys. I know that Talon's, I believe, still on the bench.
He is, yeah.
If that's correct. Yeah, so of course, I think the aim is to develop combinations and a bit of a blooding exercise towards the end of the year. But really, I did like the way Appy started that game and had Caesar around him, sort of marshalling the boys, telling them where to be, putting them in, giving them good ball when we had it. So, don't know if we'll see the same against Canberra at Campbelltown.
I for one think we probably should have just brought Galvin in for Mason's spot and left the side pretty much unchanged aside from that. That would have been probably what I would have done for a couple of reasons. One, I do think that Galvin probably, has been performing well enough when healthy to not just arbitrarily lose his spot. So I think, when healthy, he probably does need to be picked. But I think there's a lot to be said about bringing him on when the game's a little bit softened up after the first period. And we haven't tried that yet this year. He's been starting in at 6 the whole year. He's also a very versatile player. Throughout his juniors, he spent a lot of time in the back row, and I'm really curious to see what he'd look like in the back row, especially in the period of time when the game when the game slows down and the forwards are a bit tired and it's not such a bash and barge affair. And I think we might miss a trick by, not playing him to 60 after 20 instead of having him starting. But let me just read out the side from 1 to 17. It's probably going to help us have a bit of a conversation. Obviously, at fullback, we have Joey and Buller. The wing pairing is Solomona Fatape and Charlie Staines. In the centres, Brent Naden and Justin Olam. At 5'8", we do have the prodigal son, Lachlan Galvin, returning to Campbelltown, and Aiden Caesar at halfback. Stefano Utu, Ikamanu, and Fonua Bole are the props. Api Coruscant is the captain and hooker. Ruben Porter retains his spot in the back row as the starter ahead of Alex Seyfarth. Samuel Afainu, obviously, is the other back rower, and Justin Matamua locks the scrum. The bench is Talon De Silva, Sione Fainu, Alex Seyfarth, and Kit Laulili. Now, both of you guys have watched a little bit of New South Wales Cup this year so far, and Kit Laulili has featured heavily in New South Wales Cup, obviously debuting last year, but hasn't been able to push his way into the first grade side this year. What do you think of him as a player? Do you think that there is an NRL quality player there, and do you think that he should be in the side this weekend against Canberra, Jack?
Look, I'm not entirely sure about him. I mean, the hype was there initially, and when he came through, obviously, part of the junior squad, has his brother there also pushing for first grade selection. In my opinion, way too soon, but it just reflects the talent. I'm just not sure if he's not too dissimilar a player to Justin Matamua, for example. The fact he also hasn't had much experience this year, and it sort of feels like he's being thrown in. But then again, this is his home game. This is an opportunity for him to really lay down the gauntlet to any other players competing for the same positions. I'm just not sure, what point of difference he adds at this late stage in the season, to be fair.
And Nick, is there any different decisions that you would have made in this side? Obviously, we've had a little bit of a chat about the young guys, but if you were picking the team, what would you have rolled out this week? In what is essentially like, let's face it, we're probably not making the 8, but it is a must-win game if we're actually going to, really turn the season around. You don't want to be, losing again and going back on a losing streak. What sort of side would you have named this week?
Yeah, I probably would have kept pretty much the same squad as last week, to be honest. I would bring Galvin back if I really wanted to win, but, I wouldn't have really changed. I wouldn't have brought Kid in, that's for sure. Like, watching him in New South Wales Cup, like when you watch, say, as Jack alluded to, he's similar to Justin Matamua. He doesn't really offer that ball playing ability in New South Wales Cup. Well, he hasn't this year, I should say. And last week he was all right for about 10 minutes, but he wasn't really a standout, to be honest. I thought there was better players. So to bring him in for a game like this is a pretty strange move. I don't really see the thought process behind it. But I mean, I hope he kills it. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have changed much from last week, to be honest, besides Galvin.
One player who,
Wholeheartedly agree with that, Nick. Sorry.
that's all right. One player who came back last week to play his first game of footy in quite some time is Adam Dwyer, who for the second week in a row is on the bench, on the extended bench. Is he somebody who we should have considered putting on the bench instead of Kit Laulili this week?
Probably not. Look, I'm just going to say on what I saw, his fitness wasn't quite there. But then again, it depends what Benji what kind of role he wants him to play, and whether he will indeed play towards the back end. I mean, as you said, he's named in the extended reserves there. What I do wonder is why you wouldn't sort of either have someone like Dwyer or Naden in the centres, on the wing. Well, not Dwyer. Dwyer could come in and play centres, but you've got Fatape playing on the wing again, which I felt was kind of a weak spot for us early in that Titans game. Just defensively, he was sort of up in the air. So I'd swap them, or maybe bring Dwyer onto the bench. But besides that, there's not too much there at this point in the season for me.
Nick, anything to add there?
Yeah, not really. I mean, like Jack said, he was pretty gassed in New South Wales Cup. I think he came off with 10 minutes to go. Look, he looked like he was old self. Like, he was a strong ball runner, and he actually made some pretty good tackles in New South Wales Cup. He came out of the line, really got stuck in, but to not be fully fit and to come straight back into a NRL squad, probably not the best move. And if he was to come back in, I'd only have him sort of as a centre, definitely not as a 5'8" or yeah. So. Look, I don't think he's ready yet, but we'll see him in a few weeks, no doubt.
All right. Well, let's just change the subject just quickly to the graveyard that is Campbelltown Stadium. An interesting fact. So the Raiders are actually one of the sides in the NRL that has played the most games at Campbelltown. We've actually played them 16 times at Campbelltown. And in the history of the West Tigers, the Raiders have a better win percentage at Campbelltown than the West Tigers do overall. The West Tigers have won 37 of 93 games at Campbelltown Stadium for a 40% win rate. The vast majority of that would have occurred in 2005, 2010, and 2011, assumedly. And the Raiders have won 7 of 16. So it's not like the Raiders have, been just pumping us every time they're dating back many, many years, but of late definitely have. I question why we bring this fixture to Campbelltown every year, because it's literally just doing the Raiders a favor, because it's obviously the closest ground to Canberra in Sydney. So it does give the Raiders fans an excuse to just jump in the car and go down the highway, and the Raiders fans always pack out Campbelltown. And obviously this week in the news, Leichhardt was saved. That is something that we probably should have had a chat about earlier. And now all the talk is about how many games we'll play there next year. What do you guys think of Campbelltown as a ground? Because I, for one, have never actually been to a game at Campbelltown Stadium. I assume both of you have. Nick, what is it like to actually experience Campbelltown Stadium? And do you have an explanation for why we perform so poorly there?
I do not have an explanation for that. I mean, yeah, it's not far from where I live. It's like I'm at Penrith. It's not too far from there. It's actually similar to Penrith Stadium a few years ago before they did small upgrades to it. It does have that home ground feel to it. Look, when did we play there recently against the Broncos Tigers game? And you know what? There was almost more Broncos fans there. So
yeah, I remember that. That was crazy to see on the TV. That was the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, but you know what? Like you were just mentioning before, it's similar to when we play the Raiders. They get up there in droves. So I don't know why we're so poor there. I don't know what it is. But yeah.
You got any hypotheses for us, Jack?
Look, I'm just going to say it's fairly disappointing because I've only been there once as a supporter. And honestly, it didn't feel like there was much atmosphere or much pro-Tigers atmosphere, I should say. I remember the last time I watched us play Canberra there and actually paid attention and we won, it was about 2014. So I agree with Mac there. It's sort of like, why are you taking it there? It's a bit of a dead fixture. And as he also said, it gives their fans more of a chance to sort of one-up us. And, just with so many young boys coming through and the way our last seasons have panned out, I just think you need to try and take advantage of every little thing. So whether that's we play 8 games at Leichhardt, take 2 out to Campbelltown, the fact that even we played the Broncos there and it was just dead doesn't really speak volumes to me, but it's working.
I 100% agree with what you just said there, that we need to take advantage of every little thing that we have. And as a club, that is something that we do not do. Like, it feels like, just things like taking so many fixtures to the country every year. And obviously this is something that Richo has drawn a line in the sand over. Things like taking that home game to New Zealand and being the only team that did so, being one of the team that's every year seems to be playing a magic round home game. It seems to me like the club has never really put their foot down and tried to really push the envelope on being tactical when it comes to making decisions about which ground to play which team at. It always just seems to come down to, filling the stands up. But in my opinion, there's nothing that's going to fill the stands up more than the team winning games. So for me, I would definitely look at the bogey sides, the sides that seem to consistently give us grief. And Canberra are definitely one of those sides lately. They seem to pump us on the regular. And I would definitely be using, our home ground that seems to be giving us an advantage in Leichhardt against sides like Canberra and against sides like the Roosters, teams that we traditionally struggle against, and, take the other teams to Campbelltown Stadium, take the teams that we sort of, have that kind of weird reverse bogey effect. Maybe you take Cronulla to Campbelltown or you take Penrith to Campbelltown instead of the teams that already seem to have an advantage against us. Do you have anything to say about our decision earlier in the year to stop taking games to the country? And do you agree with the sentiment that we should be a little bit more tactical about our home ground decision making?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's it's like playing Para Combank, isn't it? Or playing Knights in Tamworth. It's just no other clubs seem to do it, but yeah, it's like you're saying, not taking advantage of all those little intangibles. So it's definitely something, but it's being addressed by Richo. But man, it's frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it extends to the decision not to play Mason and Miller this week. Like, even though, as you said, the home ground thing's being addressed by Richo, it seems to me like it would make more sense, because I think the biggest issue, this is my opinion, the biggest issue with Campbelltown is that over the years, we have not really been present in the MacArthur. Like, as a club, we haven't really been focused on that. We have over-indexed on bringing through Balmain juniors to our own detriment. And if you look around the league, you'd be surprised to see how many players are West Magpies juniors that never even played junior reps for the West Tigers. And obviously we're addressing that. But in order to kind of turn it into a spiritual home ground and give it some energy and create some legacy at that ground, don't we need these young Magpies players to be leading that? Don't we need them to be the ones that, the kids? There was a young bloke at Leichhardt with a Heath Mason headgear on and a sign. Imagine what it would be like out at Campbelltown, where all of those young guys' mates are and all their family are locals too. I don't quite understand why they dropped both of them. I understand the balance of the team, but I feel like it would have been a very easy decision to just leave them both. And obviously Kit's a Magpies junior as well, though. So I don't know, maybe I'm just dribbling shit. Let's talk about another subject briefly. Which Raiders numpty this week is going to have a career day and score 4 tries? My money,
you already know.
Who do you reckon?
He's 34 years old.
Mate, I've got Romana for a hat trick. Yep.
So true. It's got to be him, doesn't it? I reckon there's a pretty good chance it might be KO Weeks, though, because he's a bit of a favourite with the boys in the Discord. And I could totally oracle and see our mate Johnny, saying in the post game, I told you so. KO is going to be an Origin star.
Sebastian Krish will turn into prime Greg Inglis, no doubt.
Yeah, he's another one, isn't he?
He always does.
Definitely looks like it. I have to say, let's just briefly talk about predictions. I'm worried. I don't really, aside from maybe the spine again, which was what I guess was our advantage over the Titans in the end, was that we had more experience in the spine, and Foreign being a little bit washed and not having the best game. I think that they just look too big, too strong, too athletic, too fast, like especially in the outside backs. When you look at like their back five of Rapana, Kotrick, Tomoko, Chris, and Savage, and we're running out with Bula, yep, Fartape, Naden, Olam. Olam's been up and down this year. Like, I mean, he's definitely been among our best, but I definitely don't think that he's been at his best, especially over the last few rounds. And then obviously Charlie Staines on the wing. That is a complete mismatch in the back five, in my
Lordy,
opinion.
yes, it is. Yeah. On paper, it doesn't look good, does it?
No, and I don't think it looks much better in the pack either, really. Like we've got Stefano Foniobole, Ruben Porter, Samuel Fainu, and Justin Matamua up against Josh Papali'i, Joseph Tarpany, Hudson Young, Elliot Whitehead, and Morgan Smithies.
Cool. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they got Mooney on the bench too, and Mariotta. So they got
Yeah, and Emre Gula, who would probably be a starting
Regula
at the Tigers. Yeah, so I'm pretty worried about this game. Hopefully, the boys have taken a lot of confidence out of the win on the weekend, and really show up with a good attitude because yeah, this could get ugly pretty quick. What do you guys think is going to be the ultimate result of this game this week? Score predictions, man of the match. You first, Jack.
Yeah, look, mate, I think you're on the money there. It could get very ugly quickly, but for me, it'll start and finish in the pack, and it could potentially be Stefano versus the whole Raiders pack. And you know what his form's been. We know what his form's been like up and down really all year. Contract sagas going on in the background. I think if we hold our own there in the first 5 to 10 minutes, again, like as we did against the Titans, maybe I'm sort of underestimating Benji's nous as a coach, and he's got Fartape there for a bit of size, carrying out a yardage, trying to match up against some of these big, speedy Raiders outside backs. You've got Naden has the potential to have a burner of a game, and I think if Olam fires, as you said, he's also been up and down. We could potentially match them in the backs. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. I do, for some reason, just have that vision. Maybe like Dragons round 6, it was 24-12, I believe, to them. But we were in that game for long periods and probably had a couple bombed opportunities that could have really turned it. I think we'll miss a bit of height out wide on the wings, though, to be honest with you. Probably 22-12 to the Raiders.
Nick?
Okay, well, I'm shitting my undies, but I refuse to speak it into existence, so I'd rather speak a Tigers victory into existence. I've said Tigers 24, Raiders 20. Man of the match, Galvin.
Wouldn't that be a famous victory?
It would be.
Yeah, I mean, beating the Titans at Leichhardt is one thing, but beating the Raiders at Campbelltown, Galvin man of the match, that would be one of our best wins ever. I don't think
a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't think we're going to line up 1-17. That's the first thing I'm going to predict. I think Adam Dwyer, he's going to play. I think that him getting re-signed today in the media, they came out that basically Richo rang him yesterday and said, "You ready to sign?" And he signed. And to me, that kind of makes me think that after the training run yesterday, Benji basically gave the green light to Adam to actually be a player in this team. I think he's got a plan for him. I think we're going to see Adam Dwyer come into the starting lineup at center and push Brent Naden to the wing, and Fartape is going to drop out of the side completely. That's my prediction. And I think that that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah.
I think that Dwyer, while he's not fast, he is very skilled, very hard to tackle, and he is going to add points where we probably don't have enough points in us to beat Canberra. I think if we do line up 1-17, I think Canberra probably beat us around about 30-12 or 30-16. I'm going to go with 30-16. But I do think that there is a chance, and I think that it heavily revolves around what you said earlier, which is dragging the Raiders down to our level. And I think that that is definitely possible. There's been games where we've played Canberra in the past where for 60 minutes they were just diabolical. And it's because I think that when they show up and they play against the Tigers, they all just have brain explosions and start to play Harlem Globetrotter style football. Sunday afternoon, nice weather at Campbelltown this week. It's going to be partly cloudy, 17 degrees, so it's not going to be a wet track unless the weatherman is incorrect. But yeah, I do think that's what's going to happen. I don't know if there'll be further changes than that though. I would probably also bring Miller back on for Kit. That would probably be another change I would make. But man of the match, man of the match for the Tigers, and I'm not going to give a Canberra man of the match. I think, you know what? I actually like your prediction of Galvin having a big game here. I think that Galvin might sort of have a point to prove, especially up against Ethan Strange, who, you know, obviously Galvin's no longer eligible for Rookie of the Year, and Strange is going to probably win it in a canter. But these are the two guys who are the breakout rookies of the year. So Lockie's going to have a lot to prove, I think. And I think he might have a point. He might actually come out and have a bit of a stormer. Is there anything else you guys wanted to say about this weekend's fixture before we move on to the Pathways wrap?
No.
I like your thoughts there, Mac. I just would add that if you had AD coming back in, Big Adam, are you putting him straight back in at centre? Because he does add points. You're not wrong there, and he's got that size. He's hard to tackle. He's rangy. He will create opportunities for us, which will make.
Yeah. I would bring him back straight into the starting side at centre. I think it depends. Like if you think he's got 80 minutes at centre in him, like which obviously the coaches would know better than I would. That's what I'll do. But if they think he's only got a good solid 60 in him, then I'd probably bring him onto the bench, and probably at the cost of Kit Laulili. That's probably what I would do. I would probably, yeah. Go ahead.
Totally on board with that. No, I was just going to also add there that obviously Richard knows his players very well, and the timing of it all, like you said, I find it a bit probably not coincidental.
Yeah, and last week was the first week, I think, all year that we actually didn't run out 1 to 17. Benji had a few tricks up his sleeve. So I mean, it seems like he's actually starting to play Ducks and Drakes, which he hadn't been doing much. You have anything else to add about this weekend's clash at Campbelltown, Nick, before we move on?
No, I think it's all been pretty well covered. But yeah, I'm expecting a win.
He's expecting a win. All right, well, I'm with you. I've changed my tip. 24-20, Lachlan Galvin, man of the match. Sounds great.
Take it into existence.
Yeah, that's what we got to do. We know this. We know how it works. All right, on to Pathways. We every week on West Tigers Faithful, we like to do a bit of a Pathways rundown. Usually I've watched the game. This time I was too drunk and I was having way too good of a time. And because we once again lost, I could not bring myself to actually open up KO and watch this replay. But thankfully, you guys did watch this game. First off, tell me, who was the standout player in the team? Were there more than one? Nick?
Yeah, so look, it was a game of two halves. The first half, we played well above our weight. We kept them. At halftime, it was 6-0. So we only had one try in the first half, and we were well up against it. We were getting absolutely battered. But you know what? The boys defended really well. The likes of Tim Johansson, Zakuri Clark, Tony Suka, they all defended their absolute guts out. So they made it somewhat competitive. But, you know, every time we got the ball in that first, in both halves, we were getting absolutely battered. Like some sets, we were making 25 meters. You got guys like Luke Leali'i, who's 17 years old, running against your Bunty Afoas and, you know, Cossies and, you know, the Freddie Lussicks, like seasoned players. Dewey was probably our only threat with the ball, to be honest. He was the only one who looked somewhat dangerous every time we got it. So there wasn't a great deal of attacking footy from us. A bit of brilliance from Bailey Hodges in the second half, a chip and chase, a square only try. But yeah, other than that, wasn't much to really go off besides the grit that they showed in the first half, just to defend for a big period of that game. So that was, you know, that was well done to the boys.
Got anything to add, Jack?
Yeah, look, just that the defensive arm wrestle, as Nick just alluded to, it was probably our strength in the first half. I'm not going to say we dragged them down to our level, but it was in terms of the experience that they had in their side, and in terms of some of their outside backs, they were just decimating us out of yardage, and we really couldn't. I mean, I think it was 6-0 or 6-0 to them at the break, so we really held in it. Yep. the second half. Yeah, so the second half it just blew out. But then again, as I mentioned to you boys before, I thought there were some players. Bailey Hodges, for example, came on and just tried their luck, tried their hand. They weren't gun shy against the bigger boys, the older boys, and some of these. One of their wingers, I made a note of it, Motu Pasakala, like he scored a double, and one of them was just a barnstorming run from about 50 metres out, tore through half of our pack, and he's their winger.
International soccer player for Tonga, I believe he was.
No way.
Yeah, they mentioned during commentary. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really interesting.
He looked like a real prospect, though, didn't he?
Man, that might be a first, an international soccer convert. That's a code switch that we haven't seen any of before. So my take on this New South Wales Cup side is I'm a little bit torn because it's easy to say, you know, this is a young side from the top down, NRL all the way down, and it's easy to say that, you know, the New South Wales Cup team is, you know, it doesn't feature too many experienced first graders in it, and every week we run into sides that do. And it seems to be the pattern that they start off and they hang in there and they try, but they pretty quickly start to lose the field position game, and they start to, you know, only, as you mentioned, Nick, we make those 30-meter carries, 30-meter sets out of yardage, and then they're getting the ball back and playing the first ball on the halfway and stuff like that. It seems to happen really fast. And but on the flip side, I can't quite fathom how it makes sense that we have a New South Wales Cup side that is running last, has won, I think, 2 games and drew 1, if I remember correctly. And our Jersey Flag side seems to win almost every week when we have an almost entire Jersey Flag team that's not playing Jersey Flag. And I'm just going to quickly read out a 17-man team of players that we have signed that are not actually named in the Jersey Flag team this week that I think are all Jersey Flag eligible. 1 Heath Mason, 2 Junior Tupu, 3 Josh Felity, 4 Solomone Saukuru, 5 Navran Willett, 6 Lachlan Galvin, 7 Latu Fainu, 8 Fonua Bole, 9 Talon De Silva, 10 Jordan Miller, 11 Brandon Tumith, 12 Samuela Fainu, 13 Justin Matamua, 14 Kitlau Lee, 15 Sione Vaihu, 16 Herman Tofeono, and 17 Luke Lee. Now, we've got all of those guys. A couple of them are injured, but the vast majority of them are healthy. I think all but one are either playing NRL this week, all but 2, Junior Tupu and Latu Fainu, are either playing NRL this week or New South Wales Cup. How is it possible that this side have got... Is it just a matter of our pathways are so good that our Flag B team are actually competitive, but there's that much of a gap between Flag and New South Wales Cup? Am I underestimating the gap between Flag and New South Wales Cup that much?
Well, yeah, I actually thought the same thing.
I don't think so.
Yeah, is it the seasoned, NRL sort of players that aren't quite good enough to be in their first grade NRL squads playing Cup that make it that step up from Flag? But yeah, I don't tell you, to be honest.
I have to say, like, a part of me feels like that it has to be at least somewhat the coaching, like to have what is essentially a Flag B team competing week in, week out against, and like they lost 2 weeks ago to the team coming first in a very close game. They lost by 2, then won again last week. At first, it seemed like maybe a bit of a flash in the pan, but they just keep doing it. And they're missing 17. They're missing their best 17 players. I think it's fair to say that the 17 that I named are the best 17 Flag eligible players of the club, and not one of them are playing Flag this week. Can you imagine how they would perform in the Flag grade with that 17? Like,
It'd be merciful, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I can't imagine that they wouldn't be winning by 50 every week.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, they go undefeated easily.
I think so. I genuinely do. Yeah, but I mean, it's exciting to think that there's that much talent at the club that, like, we can field a Flag B team that's nearly the best team in Flag. It sort of for a side that's really struggled to identify the correct talent to bring through and develop the correct talent, at least it gives us a few more bites of the cherry. But let's quickly move on to somebody. Usually we have Jordan Miller watching the Pathways, but this week I thought it would be a nice change up to talk about a guy who has become a bit of a fan favorite of the podcast and the Discord, Tim Johansson. Let's do Tim Johansson watch. So Tim Johansson, every week he seems to have become very quickly the leader of the New South Wales Cup pack. And this week just gone, he got through another 58 minutes, starting at prop, 14 runs for 115 metres, which is down on his usual metres per carry, 2 offloads, 38 tackles, 4 missed, 1 ineffective, 3 errors. In a game where it got away from us in the second half, on paper, that looks to me like pretty solid effort. Like, that's a lot of work for a prop to get through in a New South Wales Cup team that gets spanked. When you compare it to the stats of a guy like Stefano Utukamanu in first grade last week in a side that got spanked, it's impressive to me. It makes me think that Tim Johansson might be made of the right stuff between the ears. What do you guys think of Tim Johansson as a prospect? Do you think he's got first grade in his future?
Oh yeah, look, I agree. He's game man. Like, he was in everything. Probably driving our line speed out of all the props, all the forwards in general. Like, I hit up every set, and he's getting jammed sometimes, but he's straight back into it. He's a footy player. That kid's an absolute footy player. So yeah, I think he's going to be our forward leader in Cup for the remainder of the year, and he'll probably push for even later in the year, maybe even a first grade debut.
Mate, I think in terms of who he was up against, his direct opposite, and just generally the fact that our pack was dominated, those stats that you just rattled off, they impressed me because, to be honest, I saw him, I thought, all right, he's good, he looks the goods, everybody's been hyping him. He sort of got folded, as Nick said, maybe once or twice early, but he just kept coming back for more. The only couple of mistakes he made were through like good ball possessions where he's trying to offload, he was trying to create something through the middle. And I think, knowing that he's one of the younger dudes there, with a bit more, a bit better coaching, I'm not sure if Aaron Payne's the guy to actually bring him through, and a little bit more physical development, he's definitely first grade material.
Excellent stuff. I would agree. I think Tim Johansson is the type of forward that the Tigers desperately lack, which is just that no-nonsense, tough guy who's also not a head case. And I think I've mentioned that a couple of times on the potty. I want to have a quick chat before we wrap things up about a couple more players in the Pathways side. There was a couple of debutants in New South Wales Cup last week. One was Navrin Willett, and we'll talk about him briefly. But first, I want to ask you guys what you think of Herman Tofeono as a prospect. He got through 43 minutes on debut. He ended up starting. He had 8 carries for 99 meters. He had 18 tackles for just 2 missed. It looks like he might have been on the field for pretty much the entire time that we weren't getting pumped. Is that a fair assumption?
He definitely had impact, yeah. He reminded me a little bit of Fanua Pole, the way he plays. Like, he's got a bit of footwork and he carries the ball like really strongly. He's got a pretty low center of gravity too. But yeah, he looks like quite the player, man. He's quite aggressive. So yeah, I liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, love his energy, and Max spot on there. In the time during that game where we weren't getting absolutely pumped through the middle third, he was a major part of that. I think 18 tackles, like, he was getting through his work pretty efficiently. But he does have that explosiveness and that aggression that you could almost replace like someone like Isaiah Papali'i, because he's obviously going. He's bailing. He's in the jump seat. I think you could sort of bring him through and maybe mould him into like a nuggety back rower type, which is something like a try-scoring one that we haven't had in some time. So that's what, another thing for the future.
That's an interesting thought. What about Nav Willett, Jack? How did you think he performed on his New South Wales Cup debut?
Yeah, look, he was nervy. I mean, he definitely tried hard. He was a bit he was found wanting a bit under the high ball, which is interesting given his height. But I think, yeah, look, with more time and some better coaching, honestly, like get them some outside backs coaching, because in terms of outer yardage, mate, they just had it all over us, the Warriors side. We're coming up against the Bulldogs this weekend, the Maggies, so they're coming third. That'll be another tough test, I feel.
Yes, indeed. And Nick, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about anyone in particular in the New South Wales Cup team before we wrap things up for this episode?
No, I think Jack covered that pretty good. Navra and Willett. I thought Clark was pretty good. He was in everything too, man, similar to Johansson. He tackled his guts out. He just, I don't know, he's had a bit of aggression, maybe a bit of class, but pretty hard to see in those sort of games.
Interesting indeed. So I think that's about it. I think we've done a pretty good job. This is obviously the first time we've done it with three people, two people brand new, and I've never hosted before. So congratulations, boys. We did it. We got through to the end, and I don't think we made an embarrassment of ourselves. Hopefully, it's listenable fare.
I hope not.
And hopefully we can get you guys back again because Reedy's gone for quite some time. Maybe next week
After another win.
Yeah, wow, that would be good. Wouldn't imagine if we just go on a streak and just
two new guests after every single win for the boys.
There you go.
That would be awesome. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us on this West Tigers Faithful Wincast. We now have a Twitter, and you can find us at Tigers Faithful on Twitter. See you guys next week. Thanks so much for joining us, Jack and Nick, and good luck to the boys. And hopefully Alex Seyfarth has a blinder.